So welcome guys to video number 9. I believe this is lesson 9, and in this video we will be tackling one aspect which is very important, and it has to do with sourcing decisions. And this is a step in procurement. If you remember, we had the pre-ordering decisions, the ordering decisions, and the post-ordering decisions. Now, when some of the decisions that you'll be making within the pre-ordering side is where do we source, or even how do we source? Now, and under this we have what you call the make or buy decision continuum. Now, in practice, we say that it is an either or. In other words, you either make the product or you buy the product. This you are doing internally, and this you're doing externally. So, this is the common practice where you will have a firm decides either to make one of the components that they need or buy one of the components. But I want us to think of it in practice this way. Now, to remember what we mean by make or buy, we had the supply chain firm that was managed by Ford over here, and you had one by Toyota, and we said that Ford opted to make everything. In other words, they owned everything from the top to the bottom of the supply chain, and we call this an integrated supply chain because they are opting to make the products. Toyota, on the other end, opted to buy the product, their inputs, using what you call long-term agreements with suppliers. But I want you to notice this. It is, in practice, it is very unlikely you have a pure make and a pure buy, because even though Toyota over here opted to make or to buy the product, 30% of the electronics are made internally. And the reason for this is to manage supply disruptions. In case there are disruptions within the supply chain, they can be able to supply their internal supply chain. So in a nutshell, this supply chain is not a pure buy. It is falling within the continuum over here, and this is what you call, and this is what is in practice. It is not a make or buy decision, but it is a make or buy continuum over here. In other words, you have two extreme ends, with one being make and the other one being buy, and firms falling either on this extreme end or on this extreme end or anywhere in between. In other words, it is a hybrid between a make or buy decision, but it is, I'm looking for the right words, it takes into consideration the context. Now, one of the contexts that you need to take into consideration is the product that you have. And we say that when we're thinking about products, you can classify them in two. The first classification is you can classify them in terms of the supply risk. The second one, you can classify them in terms of the purchasing value. Is it expensive? Is it cheap? And with this, we have a quadrant over here, and on this side we have risks. They can either be high or low, and on this side we have value. It can either be low or high. So we have four possible combinations. You have combination 1, combination 2, combination 3, and combination 4. Combination 1 is where the value of the items is low but the risk is high, and this we call bottleneck products. Bottleneck products. And these products come from products that your supply system or the supply chain is mainly run by monopolies. For example, power. Another one would be gasoline. That would be the value is low. In other words, per liter it's 100 bob, yes, but the supply risk is very, very high because it's coming from a monopoly market, or the person supplying the product has large entry barriers. In other words, you cannot supply yourself that product. That is what you call a bottleneck product. Now, the quadrant 2 is what you call strategic products, and their value is high and the risk is also high. These are strategic products, and these are critical products that depend on the supplier. In other words, the risk inherent is high and the value is also very, very high, and we're talking about heavy machinery in this case. Now we have other products here that the value is low and the supply risk is low, and this here we call routine products. For example, tissue paper, printing paper, all those are routine products. You need them each and every time, but the risk is not high. In other words, you can be able to get suppliers for that. Now the last one, which is for what you call leverage products. Leverage products. And in leverage products, what you have here is a product that is high in value but low in risk. In other words, you can get it from alternative sources. Alternative sources, you can be able to get it. Now the reason why I am giving this model is so that you can understand how to approach this whole make or buy. Now, the rule of thumb is if the product is a bottleneck product, the approach in procurement, we call it a performance-based partnerships. In other words, you are buying from external sources, but you're using performance contracts for that. Now, the second one, which is the strategic products over here, again, you will use performance-based partnerships. And the reason for this is the supply risk is high all through this section, so you need performance-based partnerships. Now, when you go to 3, which are routine products, this is what you call systems contracting. And you can find this in the notes. The fourth one is what you call competitive bidding, because you have alternative suppliers, so you allow them to bid against each other to give you the best price and the best quality. Again, I want you to notice this whole thing over here is coming under this section, under buy section over here. But we have not answered the question of how do you determine whether to buy a product or to make a product? What is the guiding principle behind that? And what are some of the pros of buying a product against making a product? So let me introduce some of the pros under each. You can get this from the notes, but I'll just touch on either. If you buy the product from outside, you're likely to get a lower cost product. In this case, in other words, you get a supplier who can beat your own price if you had made the product. That's a low cost. Now, another one is flexibility in production. In other words, you can be able to, your supply chain becomes a bit flexible. And this again, think about Ford and Toyota, the advantages in each. When you go to make the product, the most important benefit here is control. Again, think of Ford. They wanted to control the whole supply chain from the top to the bottom. In other words, you can be able to manage any eventualities within the supply chain. Now, another advantage over here would be economies of scale. In other words, the more you produce a product internally, the more the cost goes lower. Now, what we mean by economies of scale is this. Let's assume that a product has 2 costs. The fixed cost is we bought machineries and what have you. All those costs costed us 10 million. Then you have the variable cost over here per item. Let's say it's 1,000 shillings. So if we only produce one item, spreading the costs per item, it will be 10 million shillings over here against 1,000. This will be the cost. But let us take the number a bit higher and say we produce 10 million items. This means that the cost per item will be 1 shilling. Now, this here is what we're calling economies of scale. In other words, the larger the quantity that you can handle, the lower the cost in terms of spreading the cost across more items. Now, in the next video, I'll be talking about the decision. How do you decide whether to make or to buy the product?